Hi all, hope you're all doing well. I'm VortexTCG and today I want to talk about a brand new product reveal that has just come out in about 24 to 48 hours ago, and that is the reveal of the brand new advanced deck for Sakuyamon. Advanced decks are actually quite a unique product because unlike the starter decks that come out twice a year, advanced decks only come out once a year and there's only one to pick from. And because they are advanced decks, they are usually more expensive, they usually have additional stuff in them like promo cards and sleeves, and just overall is a better product than a starter deck is. However, there is a bit of controversy with this brand new advanced deck Sakuyamon, and today I want to talk about that. Why do they choose Sakuyamon? Do I like that? Do I dislike that? And give you my overall thoughts on advanced deck Sakuyamon. So let's get straight into it. So before we actually get into the advanced deck Sakuyamon, I actually want to talk about the history of advanced decks because I think it's quite important to understand the previous two entries in the advanced deck series. Previous versions included Digimon such as eosmon and Mega Gargomon as the big highlights of those decks, and if you played during the time of release of those decks, you will know that these decks ended up becoming meta-relevant decks within our format. In the case of eosmon, for example, we actually saw this get some hits on the ban list that released shortly after, mainly hitting the EX2 Impmon. Now the Mega Gargomon one wasn't as egregious, however it was still a meta-relevant deck, and with future support coming in BT16 focusing on the Rapidmon X, well, it's clear that this deck was here to stay. And it's clear to see that, these are fan favorite products from people that have bought them because they are essentially really good decks that you can, get the core of or get the majority of the deck going for and just get one or two missing cards, and it was relatively cheap to get into competitive Digimon TCG. However, this time around, there are some real key differences with the way they actually decided to choose Sakuyamon compared to the previous eosmon and Mega Gargo. For example, previous incarnations of the advanced deck tend to highlight decks that really desperately need the additional support. Previously, before the advanced deck, eosmon was essentially doing nothing. It was kind of like a tech card and it wasn't really a deck. It did get support in EX2, but the EX2 support essentially boiled down to Impmon's good, eosmon was also really good. However, it just didn't have a backbone. And the same was similar to the Mega Gargo one or the Rapidmon line that was inside. It didn't really have really good rookies, desperately needed a Rapidmon, and we got those. And because of that, they became meta decks, obviously, like I mentioned before. So when you hear the news of a Sakuyamon advanced decks, you are probably in one of two camps. You're either really happy because Sakuyamon is a fan favorite in the Digimon card game and in Digimon series in general, or you just like playing Sakuyamon in the card game currently, and just the idea of getting more support for the deck is pretty nice. However, if you're like me and a few other people that I've talked to about this, you're kind of disappointed with this news. And there are a few reasons why. Like I mentioned before, Sakuyamon is currently a meta deck. It is probably one of 3 best decks currently in the format. And knowing that there's more support for it in the future is kind of annoying, to be honest. It's also really annoying compared to other decks that you could have had in the advanced deck because, well, Sakuyamon has been getting a lot of support recently. We've seen it in stuff like BT17, EX8, and now we're getting a brand new lineup coming out in December. And I think the general consensus is that, advanced decks tend to support decks that don't really get a lot of support. In previous times that has been the case, and this time it is not. It's clear that this is for an existing archetype that is already doing really well currently. And for people, I think people just kind of wish that they had, support for an underdeveloped archetype or an archetype that hasn't gotten support in quite a long time. So let's just ask the question then, why is Sakuyamon the advanced deck that they've chosen? Well, like I mentioned previously, Sakuyamon is clearly a very popular Digimon in the Digimon Tamers anime, I believe it is, but also the Digimon card game. Usually when you play against a Sakuyamon player, they have like max rarity because they just love Sakuyamon. Similar to how like Master players tend to get all alt arts for that deck. I wonder why. And because it is a popular Digimon from the anime and also in the card game itself, the product will sell. You know, if you were going for a more obscure choice like Digipolice, people may not buy because who really cares about Digipolice? Like, there's a few people, sure, but there's not a huge player base that wants it as much as like a Sakuyamon, at least in my opinion. And obviously the most important thing to Bandai is that they make their money, you know, because if they can't make money from products, then they're not going to be making the products in the first place. But like I mentioned before, I said that, you know, there is a bit of an outcry of people saying, you know, I wish I had this Digimon or that Digimon in place of the Sakuyamon. So let's talk about some additional good choices that they could have potentially picked. Now, I think it's clear that if you look at the previous advanced decks, they've been focusing on the Digimon Tamer series. One of them that hasn't really been getting much support recently, well, it has had quite a bit of support, but it just doesn't do enough to make it an actual deck. It's Justimon. Justimon is currently going through like an identity phase where like it just doesn't know what it wants to be. Does it want to be this kind of like device deck that they use to rush down your opponent, or is it like an OTK deck? And if you look at the current support, we've only had like 2 like major lines for Justimon in the game, which is from EX2, which was god like 3-4 years ago at this point, and then obviously the brand new line that was in 2.5. It has got an odd piece of support now and then, but the identity of the deck is still kind of confused and doesn't really have much of an identity in the first place. So an advanced deck for Justimon could have been really nice. I mean, just being able to get a fresh bunch of support in one place for Justimon players might have been quite nice. And it also rolls in line with the thesis of the product from previous years, where they update decks to modern standards and they become meta-relevant decks, because Justimon could potentially be a meta deck if it got the support. And I think that'd be quite cool to see Justimon being played at like high tables. I just think Justimon's a cool Digimon, really. However, if you're looking outside of the Digimon Tamer series, there is an ongoing series happening with the Digimon card game in general, and it's based off the Digimon card game, and that is Digimon Liberator. Now, Digimon Liberator is constantly being updated as we go along, and you know, even just like a couple of days ago, we got like new Digimon that was kind of announced, but it could have been an interesting idea to do an advanced deck on a Digimon Liberator Digimon. It could be like a brand new line that is being debuted in the advanced deck, but it could also be Digimon that has already existed in the Digimon card game but just doesn't have that much support currently. I'm looking at stuff like Ryugumon, but therein lies the problem. Do people really care about Ryugumon and getting more support for it? Probably not, which is why I think something like anime related that hasn't gotten a lot of support recently is probably the best approach, such as Justimon, but obviously that is not the case. They have chosen Sakuyamon. So let me just make this clear. I'm very happy if you like Sakuyamon, right? Because if you like Sakuyamon and you've gotten this support, I love that for you. However, for me, I'm just kind of disappointed about the news. This isn't like a dual release like starter decks, and we only get one of these per year. And as this is a product that only comes out once per year, it's quite a special product for the Digimon player base, I think. And you know, while there are going to be a group of people that really do enjoy this Sakuyamon advanced deck, I think a lot of people are going to be kind of meh on it. And personally, I would just love to see an underappreciated deck get more support and not a deck that is currently in the meta getting support. I mean, Bandai must have known that all the support they've been giving Sakuyamon as of late surely was going to be a meta deck, so surely they knew before they decided to design the new advanced deck? I don't know. But that's just my take on the advanced deck news. What do you guys think? Do you guys like the Sakuyamon advanced deck? Do you dislike it? Or do you have a suggestion for an advanced deck in the future? Let me know in the comment section down below. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.